Hello, everyone. Welcome to Developing Palates. I'm Aaron Loomis coming to you from the Drew Estate studio. With me today is John McTavish. How you doing, John?
I'm doing well. As is par for the course after a trade show, I'm not functioning at maximum brain capacity, probably like 65%. Although I do plan to drive into the office tomorrow morning, so that should be a very interesting experience for all of the other drivers around me. How about you?
Yeah, I'm doing well. I was a little slow going. As soon as I landed on Saturday, I had to run off to coach softball, so straight from the
Mm.
airport. And that worked out pretty well. And then after that, it was time to crash and try to catch up on a little bit of sleep. But otherwise, not a bad trip. No delays coming back like we had going in. But
I wonder
um,
if you like that coach in Ted Lasso, the one that's really quiet, and you just kind of, you were just sitting there like grimacing and grunting and stuff because that's all you could get out.
Yeah, it was a bit like that. Yeah. We had a pretty mellow practice. I think it was kind of ended up going to be our last one before season starts because the weather here is starting to rain all week. So I don't think it's going to be good for us. All right, let's introduce our guest tonight. We're doing a TPE 2023 recap show where we are trying to get perspectives from kind of all the different directions from this trade show and kind of representing the exhibitor side of things is Steve Saka from Dunbarton Tobacco Trust. Steve, welcome to the show and joining us tonight.
Thanks, gentlemen. Appreciate to be here.
Absolutely.
Gentlemen, boy,
Yeah.
going the wrong way with this already.
And then kind of doing two faces tonight is Mike Szczepankiewicz from Cigar Hustler, the retail store, as well as the Hustler podcast, Mike and Mike Productions. So a little media, little retailer going on. So how you doing tonight, Mike?
I am doing well, sir. And you know what? I got to give you credit for the way that you pronounce my last name. You nail it every time. It makes me forgive all the evil things that you do to me on an annual basis.
Well, I had apologized to you last week already, so I didn't want to have to apologize to you again tonight. So make sure we get it right. All right. So yeah.
Nice.
All right. So I'm gonna start off by kind of explaining what TPE is for maybe those that are not aware, since they've had a bit of a name change behind the acronym. So previously it was the Tobacco Plus Expo, and this year I believe it's been changed to the Total Product Expo. So I think trying to get tobacco out of the name, maybe for one, trying to expand the footprint of what they can exhibit. So it's kind of always been a tobacco, cigar, vape, alternative, CBD, whatever kind of in that space would work. But now they wanted to kind of bring in like snacks and drinks and some other things for maybe the convenience store side of things. But I didn't really see much of that on the trade show floor. But I think that's what they want to expand it. But we're going to be focusing tonight on the cigar side of things because that's kind of the space that we are mostly in. So, and I think our audience is most interested in that portion of it. But if the topic comes up, we can discuss some of the other things. So I wanted to get a little bit of insight from both you, Steve, and Mike in regards to kind of what your thought process was leading up to this show, what your expectations were, and kind of what you wanted to achieve from your attending this year. So let's start out with you, Steve. What was kind of your plan going in? What were your expectations of what would happen at this year's show?
I wasn't overly optimistic, to be honest with you. I mean, things have been a little bit slower lately. I mean, Mike, you know this. Come on, you can chuckle at it, but I mean, the deals and the discounts have been pretty heavy on the street since last summer. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's a tight competitive market, a lot of glut of product. No, I think it was a difficult time for a show. Mm-hmm. I think that pretty much what ended up happening. And look, I can only speak for my little sphere. I know for me, I got the orders that I was probably going to get anyways. I may get them 2 or 3 weeks later than today. You know, right. Maybe it moved some people a little bit forward in their order that were in attendance. We did okay. You know, not gonna start getting the bathtub encrusted with diamonds, a la, my favorite boxer of all time. But at the same time, it was okay. It was not great, but it was not miserable either. And that
Okay.
was kind of my perspective at my booth. We wrote a decent amount of orders that were enough to justify our being there.
Right.
The question you don't know is how many of those orders would you have written had you not been there anyways?
Right. Okay.
Did you find the exhibiting experience in 2023 to be that different than the exhibiting experience last year, Steve?
No, I think the show is really well run. They're very good at the front end organization compared to others. Are they perfect? No, none of them are, but they do it pretty tight. And you got to understand, some of the confusion with all trade shows is always just the fact that you have to use these multiple vendors, and sometimes they all have their own little quirky systems. You'd be surprised how much time probably Mike wastes trying to figure out how to do a simple booth. You know what I mean? It's crazy. But overall, I think that the in, the out, the actual execution of the trade show, I think it's very professionally done. I think they do a good job. I think but that doesn't surprise me. Dawn was sharp where she was before, and she continues to be sharp where she is now.
Right.
For those who don't understand, Dawn is she's the trade show organizer. She's kind of like the director of the battleship. She's the one that runs the trade show. I don't know what her official title is, but
Right.
she's El Jefe when it comes to this.
And she was at IPCPR previously, moved over to TPE, so she kind of has taken that experience with her and continues to run it well. All right, Mike. So what was your kind of expectation heading up to the show about what you may or may not be doing at the show and kind of what you ended up doing?
I think TPE is always one of those shows where your expectations are always extremely low.
Yeah.
I think that half the time I don't know if I'm going to go. As time kind of, it's like, should we go to this thing? PCA? I'm going to PCA. I know I'm going to PCA. I'm going to PCA, right? TPE, you're just like, well, where does it fall on the schedule? Can we make it work? Is it really that big of a deal? It's always great to get together with everybody and hang out and smoke cigars. And then, you wind up opening your wallet a little bit from a retailer's perspective, but you can live without it, I guess, to some degree as a retailer. But then again, it's awesome, to get more one-on-one time with manufacturers, with brand owners, and with media. And you guys have all become total friends, and so I look to hang out with you guys whenever we meet up in anything. I'm like, oh,
Right.
where are you guys at? So those things are what's really kind of important, and those things really kind of scale me into, all right, fuck it, I'm gonna go. Let's just go do it. So my expectations, like I said, they're always kind of low. It's definitely blue carpet heavy. Right. It's definitely other products, as I think that they removed tobacco to kind of push harder on the marijuana thing, because I think if I'm a representative of weed and it's tobacco, I'm like, whoa, that stuff's evil. I don't want any part of that, So that's probably why they pulled that out of the name. That would make the most sense, especially seeing how dominant that whole market is. And to be honest, it looks like they're raking in boatloads of cash, and they're all having a great time.
You know what it is, Mike? They're having their 1996.
Yeah.
Right. It's
the total feel over on that side of the show is, to me, so reminiscent of when the cigar boom was just raging, 95, 96, even going into 97. It's just cash everywhere. Everyone's happy. Everyone's making money. Everyone's figuring out a way to make more money on top of the money they're making. It's just, endless customers. The future is bright.
Yep.
That's what's going on over there.
100%.
Hallelujah. We'll never have that feeling ever again. So God bless them.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're clawing our way to not being banned from smoking, in the future. So, yeah. So I think that's kind of my general, expectation of the show. I don't just kind of wing it. So I lean towards going. It makes sense to go.
A lot of that has to do with the buyer makeup, right? And what your product mix is. And this is what I always tell people. We're really a bad exhibitor for the bulk of the buyers that are there.
Mhm.
The bulk of the buyers that are there own discount tobacco outlets, and they own head shops where they got 3 cases of cigars. And this guy's got, 8 convenience store gas stations, and he wants 2 cabinets of cigars in his thing. There's a lot of cigars that are sold that way. It's a huge, huge market. But those buyers really only want two things. They want either a super well-known legacy brand, Monte Cristo, Romeo and Julieta, Acid, right? I mean, Rocky Patel is almost too nouveau for them, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Or they want the cigar to cost less than $4 out the door. Okay. Right. This is the two products they want. And when you're, like Mike or like myself, you're a small unknown company and your cigars don't happen to be under $4 a piece out the door. Yeah. So you really have nothing for the vast majority of the buyers that are there. And you'll notice that the bigger companies, they scale their offerings different. Like you saw at the Gurkha booth, it was all about the 5-pack and the fresh thing with the thing you can hang on a pegboard, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, that's not the pitch that they have at PCA because that's a different customer class.
Right.
But that is the pitch that you have when you are at, this show. And look, don't think I'm dumping on Gurkha here. I mean, Drew Estate's at the forefront of doing this. General does it. STG does it. I don't know if Oliva does or doesn't yet, but if they haven't, they will. You know what I mean? This is the trend. This is the way it's going. So when you're those companies, you can actually tap into that customer base.
Right. For
us, we just happen to we're lucky that some of the brick and mortar shops happen to come and they write an order while they're there with us.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you know what? Like you have your smaller retailers that maybe won't have the opportunity to kind of meet with you at PCA, or if maybe they meet with you at PCA, but they don't get to spend as much time with you, maybe 3, 4, 5 minutes. When it comes to TPE, they might be able to get 20 minutes or 15 minutes, just
sometimes an hour.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point. So when it comes to being a mid-level or a lower level retailer, to kind of get out and have those experiences and meet the guys who make these cigars, TPE could be a very good experience because of that, I mean, I was talking with you for a couple minutes and then some fanboy swooped in, needed a hug and a picture and, the whole gamut. So I don't know if you would have gotten that same opportunity at PCA, So that I could see more retailers potentially trying to go to TPE for that reason. Exactly.
No. I don't know where the questions are going, so I don't want to just keep bringing up
free flowing.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's flowing.
So, one of the questions is, you ask, am I going to do this or am I not going to do this? Yep. We have the same question every year. Mm-hmm. Okay. And, and it's hard to justify by the numbers. I mean, it's not like we hit a home run there, right? We cover our costs, boom, boom, boom. All right. But it doesn't really move the dial in any way. So why go through the grief of doing it? And part of it is, you do have an opportunity to talk to a lot of people that you don't otherwise have.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I always believe in trying to show face. You know what I mean? So if it's something like this and I'm allowed to participate, I will participate, and then another thing too is, and I'll admit it, it's a little bit of a hedge. I actually don't know where this battle is going to end. Okay. I don't know if TPE is our future or if PCA is our future. I know that I'm going to go down with the ship on PCA.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But at the same time, I don't mind having the life raft over there either.
Right.
And you just don't know. And I think it's going to get really, really interesting if this does actually happen where TPE is at the end of January and PCA is like the beginning of April or something like that. Now, look, retailers are not going to go to both of these trade shows.
No.
They're only going to probably go to one.
Yeah.
And that becomes a big decision. How's this going to work? Because I can see someone that has the money could do like a buy or host program that could crush. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you're willing to spend $700,000 to $800,000, you can bring in a lot of hosted buyers that, that's going to have a huge impact on the value of that show. And if they spend that money appropriately, you could see them suck up the people that would be going to the other one in April.
Yeah.
If they really were serious about this, it's a battle, we want to have a fight, because all this namby-pamby about, we get along and we're different, yada, yada, yada. That isn't true. I mean, the reality is it's tough for us as manufacturers to support 2 shows a year already.
Right.
And now we're going to support 2 shows that are literally 3 months apart.
Right.
It's gonna get really interesting.
I think that personally, TPE jumped the shark a little bit. You know, there was nothing new as far as the cigar world. You know, there was for one, it was freezing. It was super, super cold. So, you know,
Loved it.
when you did the part, yeah, for you, I'm sure, but for most people, it hurt the party. It hurt the big opening party that Drew Estate does.
Oh no, it was bitter cold in Vegas. It was an odd one.
Yeah, it's a dry cold. It's totally different. So, so I really think that last year when you saw the Drew Estate party, you were like, holy shit, man. Like, why aren't we doing this kind of sort of thing at PCA? You know, this year it's like, okay, this is the same thing. Nothing else has changed. We just kind of looped in again. And it just seemed to me like PCA is okay with where we're at as far as the cigar aspect of TPE. And they're not really gung-ho about advancing and continuing to build and grow. It's like, we're good here. You know, I tried to get a booth. I had a moment of weakness at one point, and they're like, oh, we're booked solid. I'm like, okay, no big deal. So, but then I saw that some exhibitors that were cigar guys were actually on the blue carpet. I'm like, oh man, that's tough. How do you say, all right, I'll go sit over here in no man's land, you know, next to the gummies? I just don't, there's not really a good, yeah, I guess you were there, but it's not going to help you. There's not going to be any real sales there. And if you have samples,
I lost track of something. You're saying there were cigar exhibits on some of the blue carpets?
yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, the demarcation line last year seemed, and this is only my second TPE, but I would say there was a marked difference between sort of the more boxy cutoff where it was quite clear you were going to the blue zone. And this year it seemed like there were sort of little islands that sort of made their way somewhat into the blue area. And I have to want, like, I agree with Mike. I wonder, and I have to assume those exhibitors felt they were kind of hanging out there out in the middle of nowhere, not really surrounded by their friends or people that they know. And I don't know what that did to their traffic numbers, but I can't imagine it was good.
Well, they had more traffic, but they had less buyers. That's what
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I guess you want more buyers. Less
they had
traffic.
90% of the traffic.
That's right.
It's like what PCA did to the e-cig guys, you know, 4 or 5 years. They shoved them in the corner and then just let them all kind of bleed out and die, and they all left angry, you know?
Yeah. So I don't know if that was a factor of, you know, listen, they had some cancellations and there were some spots available. So they, you know, said, look, there's some blue guys that aren't showing up. We can take this spot. We can give it to you. You know, I don't know how. I assume they were pretty clear about the reality of, you're going to kind of be out in the middle of nowhere. Are you okay with that? And they're like, well, you know, for $3,000 or whatever it is, sure. But I do wonder for those people, if we were to have this conversation with them to say, you know, how was that for you? I don't know whether they were happy with that decision or not.
Well, I know the answer to that. They weren't.
Right. They probably
Well,
weren't.
yeah, come on. Just taking the spots are bad. You might as well be just lighting your money on fire. But that's one of the beautiful things about our business. I see people do that all the time. So it's good, you know?
Yeah. So talking about the hosted buyer program, that's something that TPE does, you know, to draw in attendees. And question I think more for you, Steve, is does TPE reach out to you to ask you if you want to participate in that program, if you want to bring in some retailers by covering?
No, that's something that they take that out of their own operating budgets.
Okay, because I heard some other.
They may charge it back to us by raising the rates on the trade show floor, but that isn't. I mean, TPE is not. Everyone says it's cheaper to do TPE than PCA, but it actually isn't. It actually costs exactly the same. The difference is you're just doing everything so much smaller at TPE. It's costing you less money, but it isn't like the booze are really that much cheaper or the carpeting's cheaper or the electrical. It's all the same crap. You know what I mean? So, I mean, the actual cost is near identical. You may even argue it's a little cheaper when the casino and the hotel are connected to the convention center. It cuts down on probably about $80 a day worth of Uber, you know?
Right.
But yeah, so.
Yeah. Okay. Because I had heard from some other exhibitors saying that they were actually bringing in some retailers by covering, I guess, maybe some of the hotel nights or something like that.
I'm sorry. I got off topic there.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, a hosted buyer program is where they will actually approach a retailer in a particular segment They'll say, listen, you own such and such shop, blah, blah, blah. You do $1 million or more business a year. We would love for you to come and see TPE. And we're going to pay for your airfare. We're going to give you these hotel rooms, and we're going to give you meal vouchers. And essentially they end up spending, typically somewhere around $2,000 to bring in a couple from a particular store, sometimes as much as 3, depending who they are and where they're coming from. If you bring in the right retailer buyers, that will make a huge difference as to how we would view TPE, right? Because it's always, in any trade show, it's a question of numbers. The issue for PCA is that, back in the day, we would get 1,500, 1,800 retailers. We would always get over 1,000 retailers. We're now basically between 450 and 550 buyers a year. Now, that happens to work okay for Steve Saka at Dunbarton Tobacco Trust, because I'm in the right size for this group of retailers, but I'm about to max out on them. And I'm such a young company and I'm maxing out. That's not good. So buyers are what makes a trade show work. And if you don't have buyers, you can have all the best exhibitors with the best products in the world, and it just does not matter.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So maybe a question here more for Mike and John and I, in regards to the kind of the booth layout, at least on the, the cigar side of things is, how do you think the layout was this year compared to previous years in regards to companies utilizing the kind of I'm blanking on the name now. What do you call it? The corrals or the pods that they were using?
The pavilion.
Pavilion,
Pods
yeah.
or pavilions, yeah.
Versus the ones that are kind of, going with their own independent booths. How do you think that matched up compared to previous years, or in a comparison to a PCA kind of layout?
John, I don't want to.
Well, I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense, both from a perspective of by reducing the footprint, you're whether it's true or not, they released the numbers. I think they said attendance was up 27% for retailers. It's really, fortunately, it's really tough to gauge, because when you make the pavilions a certain size, they always look busy. Are they actually busy? It's tough for me to gauge. You'd have to talk to the people that are exhibiting at the pavilions. They certainly seem happy, but they're going to say that regardless. They're not going to be like Steve and say, oh, our orders were actually down versus last year. Every time we walk by, the pavilion seemed packed. And that's probably as valuable for the trade show as anything, to say the perception is always that the pavilion is packed. People are always there. Are they the right people? Are they making the right purchasing decisions? Well, there's no way for me to know that, but I would say it certainly looks better than, say, a giant Oliva booth where there's like 5 people standing around and there's no customers. So, I think it's the smart decision. It does make it difficult, obviously, for people to move around, but I don't think anyone was really complaining about that. I don't think any exhibitors that I saw were saying, oh, it's too cramped. They were all saying, gosh, it's really nice to just show up and have my pavilion and pod set up, and I don't have to, sweat my balls off for the 8 hours or whatever to set up this thing. I literally show up, put product in, and I'm ready to exhibit. And then when I need to leave, I don't have to spend another 8 hours tearing down. I can just get on a plane and go home. So they seem pretty happy about it. Mike?
Yeah, I mean, it looked the same from last year, in my personal opinion, with the exception of a couple of people kind of being stuck out in the blue carpet. Like I said, the pavilions, they didn't look busy to me. And from what I heard, I think a lot of people kind of got kicked in the teeth. If I could go up to, a pavilion and find a seat in that place almost every single time, that means there weren't a lot of people sitting down writing orders. Your sales force will make it look busy if you have 2 or 3 people with you. I mean, Terrence alone just sitting in the pavilion is a baby giraffe just kind of roaming around in a cage. He takes up a lot of space, So I think that it's going to have that aesthetic.
Yeah.
I thought you were gonna go or something like, well, Terrence, he always attracts a crowd. So Terrence comes with like 2 or 3 guys listening to every word he says. But no, you go with the giraffe thing, man.
You can't miss him. He's just walking around. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, there's Terrence. So this is why my podcast is number 1, Steve.
Laffy will kill me if I don't correct this. We weren't actually down this year, so. Just want to put that on the record.
Yeah.
But was it amazing? No. Anyways, I don't even know how to judge what looks busy.
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
the only place I was in TPE was my booth and to take a piss or to leave at the end of the day.
Right.
So I really saw very little of TPE. I got out and roamed like maybe 20 minutes at one point, and that was coming back from the bathroom. So I never really have a sense of what is busy and what isn't busy. I mean, did we look busy?
Yes.
Yeah,
There
I
were
would say.
And I would say we were kind of busy. I mean, it wasn't like crazy busy, but I mean, I don't know, man. It's hard to.
I mean, I will say there's certainly, not naming companies because I'm not that guy, and you'll have to tune in the Hustler Patreon to find out what I really think. But there were certainly booths where walking by on day 2, and I would expect them to still be busy on day 2, and they were kind of doing the thing. They're laying back in their chair and kind of looking at their phones and just looked really defeated. And there was a really good comment from Omar when we were talking to him about that, and he said, look, there are times where I'm not busy, but I'm not laying back in my chair and looking at my phone and just kind of like looking dejected, because that translates from 50 feet away. What I'm doing is, looking busy and making it look inviting to come to the booth. And so I don't know if some of the exhibitors got that message, but when you have like one principal and 3 sales guys and they're just sitting there and they look really sad, I don't know that that makes a retailer want to come up to your booth and talk to you. So there's certainly some people that did not appear to be having a good show, but I think that's what happens every year, whether it's PCA or TPE. There's always some winners and there's always some losers, and obviously it's not great if you're one of the losers.
Yeah. I need to clarify one thing real quick because I'm already getting angry text from Mike Palmer. It's our podcast. It's not.
Oh, that's true. It is the Mike and Mike podcast.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
You could just
it's
say
our
Mike's podcast and you've got it covered, right?
That's right.
I mean,
Yeah, I don't think so. I think he's a little touchy. I think we better stick with the double mics. Yeah.
Yeah. And to be perfectly honest, I mean, everybody thinks that he owns everything anyways, as far as Postania, Cigar Hustler, the podcast. So I don't understand why he's getting so uppity, but whatever. It's been mentioned.
Yeah.
So we were talking about this today, and it would make more sense for me as a retailer to show up day 2, day 3,
Right.
than just arrive day 1. Because day 1's a little bit busier. People are kind of running around a little bit. If I use Saka as the gauge, you could see when he was really busy with a bunch of people and talking with a bunch of people and kind of doing his thing. And then as time progresses and people kind of leave, there's more downtime, so. And plus the raping and pillaging of cigars is, abundant on day 3. I would much rather be there day 3 than day 1, day 2, day 3. If I had to pick 2 days, and day 1, day 2, or day 2, day 3. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's the interesting dynamic. And yeah, I just don't think that a lot of people wrote a lot of orders. I feel like there was a lot of open space. I mean, Saka, you're a draw. People are going to come to you,
Yeah, this is interesting for me to hear because I can only judge it from our little window.
Right.
So we wrote more on day 1 this year than we wrote all of the previous year. But things significantly slowed down on day 2. It was half of what we did on day 1. And day 3 was half of what we did on day 2, roughly. You know what I mean? So, I mean, we got all those orders pretty much like in the first few hours. But I don't know. But the second day we spent time with our big customers, right? So we wrote less orders, but they were much more substantial orders.
Mhm.
Right.
So.
And you had more time to spend with them at that point.
Yeah, and I had a lot of time to spend with a lot of retailers that I didn't know. Some that are accounts and others that are just becoming accounts, or people that are about to open a store. And that's something that regretfully for me at PCA, I don't really make myself available to do.
How can you?
Well, I'm so busy doing the media stuff because I figure that reaches more people, right? Mm-hmm. And nobody wants me doing sales. It's a disaster. Okay, so that's not a good idea. So, I mean, TPE does give you an opportunity to talk to people much longer than you have at PCA. That part is definitely true.
Let me ask you this, Steve, because I think you're as an exhibitor, you're kind of in a prime position, unlike us, to determine how successful an exhibitor is. I did hear the comment from a number of other, I think it was largely media people and a couple of retailers that said they didn't think there was a lot of media attending the TPE, but every time I turned around, I was running into some group that I didn't know who were carrying cameras. So you probably being, not to give you too big of a head, but you are probably one of the guys that they want to go see. So I feel like you're probably a good litmus test of, did you feel like there was, kind of the same amount of media coverage as last year, up, down? Like, where was your pulse?
I'll tell you where the difference was. There was just as many, and there were some new faces, people that I didn't recognize, but I did less video casts this year, I think. I don't know if I recorded more than 2 or 3. I mean, I think I did one audio thing. But it seemed like the previous year, there were a lot more people shooting video.
Yeah.
Right. And there were a lot more people that were being a little bit more proactive about news stories. It seemed like there were just as many people, but it seemed a much more casual kind of thing, with a few exceptions, But I mean, like, you guys do your thing, which is kind of whatever it is. I don't even know how to describe it, but you know what I mean? But I mean, Half Wheel was making the rounds.
Yep.
They were doing their normal running around like a squirrel. And there were a couple of the bigger bloggers there. I don't even know what to call anyone anymore. It's not like a blogger, more YouTube-y. And
yeah,
I like it when they call us press when we come in. That certainly gives me a swollen head. I'm like, oh, press.
It's not media. I don't really get the difference. I mean, did you do anything, Mike, as far as your program from TPE?
No, I didn't. I don't like to do, everybody else does those things. These guys are the best at that. Matt Tyne, how about that cigar? And, those dudes, they do all that sort of thing. I generally just kind of go and assess and get my opinion and just kind of give it verbally. Now, I do have a drone that I keep threatening to bring because I think that would be pretty cool. But I don't know where I would put that video, maybe in the middle of my YouTube or something. But I don't want to piss on somebody else that's doing it, and I don't want to piss people off. I'm like, oh, let me talk to you about it. It's just not my thing, and like, now you got to talk to me as well. It's like, you just did that, So I really feel like that space already exists. It's already kind of dominated by How About That Cigar, Developing Palates, Coop, Half Wheel, and I don't need to thrust myself into that. And I think that what has happened is a lot of those guys that have done that have realized that it's a tough business. It's not very lucrative, and you really have to be passionate about what you're doing in order to continue forward and to do it year over year over year. A lot of these guys think that, hey, I'm going to post up a video, do a quick interview, and I'm going to be successful, but if you're asking the same damn questions and they're not really that intuitive, you're going to fall the wayside, So I don't think that there's a place for me for that, to be perfectly honest.
And I do wonder how much of that is just by the nature of a lot of these hosting agencies for video have become more and more anti-tobacco. That was certainly reflected in the consensus this year, where we saw a number of sort of prominent YouTubers who were just no longer contributing in that space. So
Right.
I do wonder for them, part of it is probably, maybe it's not worth it for them to go to the TPE and get video coverage because they don't really have a place to show that off. And maybe part of it is, again, the continuing transition of the newer cigar media people are just not doing video because that's not what their audience tunes into. They tune into reels, or they tune into short Instagram stories. And, I don't know that you can, I guess you could probably do a 90-minute what's new with Steve, but I don't think you could, or 90 second, I should say. I don't think you can keep that to 90 seconds. So I don't think that would work.
Kind of circling back around to the traffic. I thought there was a weird dynamic on the floor because you had the 2 pavilions. I was kind of surprised that they haven't expanded that to more than 2, and that there wasn't a lot of companies that are interested in those small booths, because I think that they could pack in a bunch more. I think some of the companies that have larger booths should think about going back to a pavilion because they cannot pull the traffic at a bigger booth. And then some of the bigger companies that went with bigger booths were ghost towns. And I don't know if that's just because there's a weird dynamic where they don't have the retailers that are at this show that kind of buy from them, or maybe because they didn't have a principal there that they weren't having a draw. But there were some larger companies that I would say a significant amount of the time their booths were quite empty. So that was a bit interesting, and maybe they should maybe scale down a little bit.
I know you don't want to name names, but can you give me a sense? Are we talking about the 10 by 20, 10 by 30 guys? Are we talking
No,
about the bigger than that?
I'm talking even bigger than that. Yeah.
Got
it's- it- what was
I
that?
mean, P&K was pretty dead. I
Yeah.
mean, they had beer. You know, we have beer. Come in.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you got weed 2 hours over. What the fuck? Come on.
True.
You can literally do like 1,000 milligrams of gummy in one aisle and just samples.
Right.
Yeah. So, but I mean, there was some guys that had 10 by 10s or 10 by 20s that were busy all the
Packed.
time.
Yeah.
So
we literally had to go by 10 times, 12
Yeah.
times.
so
Which was like full on PCA level.
yeah, and they're not necessarily companies I would think that like would be big draws from the convenience side of things. So there was something going on where they had just a lot of traffic. Maybe it was just the right group of retailers or whatever it was that was going on, but it was just a weird mix. Companies that you thought would be busy weren't. Companies that you didn't necessarily think would be busy were very busy. So it was just interesting to kind of see some of that. So, but nice to see, I guess, also. But we'll see how it that shakes out to the next trade show versus this show next year, things of that nature. So
can I ask a question? When we talk about these ones that were doing well, are we talking about kind of like the named ones where they have some sort of provenance already, whether it be Black Label or Foundation or somebody like that? Or are we talking about like there were just some 10 by 10 no name companies you had no idea who they were, but they were hot?
There's two that jump out at me, and I'll name them because it's a positive for them, so I'll name it. Cavalier Geneva was busy all the time, constantly people at the booth.
I don't know that he had a chance to take a bathroom break at any point within 2 days.
Awesome.
And then Howard G, we never got a chance to talk to him.
He
Every
might have
time
been
we
the
were by that
hardest
booth,
working guy at the trade show. I'm
somebody
not
was
kidding.
talking to Howard.
It was amazing.
Yeah,
That dude's next level, man.
yeah.
That dude-
We stood, I kid you not, this was like Steve year one levels where we stood and waited for a half an hour for a break to talk to him, and we could not get in there. It was just like a constant stream. I mean, kudos to him.
He does a great job of marketing. He's working with some good dudes that are, that are invested in the company. They're not just, hey, make me a cigar, even though they're stars or football stars or celebrities, and he's just down to earth, man. I got this shit with him at PCA when the opportunity came up for a booth and I saw that I could be by him. I'm like, oh, I want to talk with.
Absolutely.
I want to hang out with that guy. So, I'm not surprised that he did very well at TPE. The guy works his ass off, and and it shows. So,
Which isn't to say that Black Label wasn't busy across them. It's just we had more of an opportunity on day two to kind of sneak in there and get our 5 minutes than those two booths where we had to,
I think the
again, it was
difference
like
there is,
PCA.
sorry, John. I think that the difference there is that Howard is just so approachable. Just so easygoing, and he's a professional, man. He wants to talk about you. He wants to see how you're doing, how are things going on. It isn't, and I'm not trying to crap on anybody else, but he makes it very easy. He makes it, makes it a very warm feeling when you talk to him, and why wouldn't you want to talk? And plus, his outfits are amazing. I mean, are you kidding? The colors, next level.
Yeah.
I wish I could pull that off.
He looks for the brightest thing possible, and he rocks it.
Yeah,
So
and
is
kind of
the-
in Howard's case, it's Howard in the booth, his fiance is with him, so that's you have, and they're usually in the conversations together. So it's there's not other people in the booth that you can kind of chat with. So like when we go to see Steve, we could talk to Steve. If Steve's not available, we could talk to
We could talk to
Dave.
Cindy?
We could talk to Cindy. So there's a bunch of people there. At Black Label, you could talk to James, you could talk to Derek, you could talk to other people on the team. So like, some of those cases, it's you only have a principal really to talk to. So yes, that their time is tied up a lot more than you can get from other booths. But still some of those booths, really just popping all the time, which was nice to see. So it was good. So let's talk a little bit about new releases, I guess, at this event. Not a lot of releases, and I would say probably definitely not a lot of releases that drew a lot of buzz. So kind of, John and Mike can share in this, and Steve not really releasing something that's like super new or a new line kind of a thing that's going on at this trade show. So maybe I'll start with Steve on this actually. So at this trade show, do you see it as a chance to release something new, or is that something that you kind of hold back for PCA or other times of the year and not really want to tie it along with the show?
A lot of it just has to do with the timing. You know, you're still coming off the grind. It's just like the PCA is the big point, right?
Yeah.
So everything revolves a year in advance of what's happening at PCA. And it's just really hard to squeeze something in for that exact time of year. It's tough. And you don't want to do a big nationwide release when you know that you're lucky if 10% of your customers are even going to be on the trade show floor, right? So you don't want to squander that opportunity to debut something. And so I don't think it's a good place to announce something, to be honest with you. I don't even know if it's necessary to do it at PCA anymore, but I definitely wouldn't want to do it at TPE personally. It doesn't make sense. Now, if I had a product that was perfect for my friends over in the DTO section, okay, the people that buy from P&K, then yeah, I would scream that at the top of my lungs, right? I just don't have the product that's right for those people. But if I had something that, competed with, factory smokes and whatever God else they put in bundles for less than $4 a cigar out the door, yeah, I'd scream it out loud, and you would get a lot of customers.
Yeah. So Mike, were there any cigars that were releasing at this show that, drew your attention or something you were looking for going into the show?
Well, I told you, I don't know if we were live or not, but I did get sucked into Steve's cigar that he released at TP. He released to everybody.
Right.
So
He always gets you. He kind of comes at you sideways. He's like, well, we don't really have anything new, Well, I guess we have this.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, where did this come from?
It was an opportunity to order them in advance of the other people for the same high price that they're going to pay. So there was like no value in doing it whatsoever. We're gonna put out the next pre-order for the next Moesta release on March 1st or 2nd. So, and we figured if we were there and we're writing orders, might as well tell these people face to face, oh, this is what's coming.
Yeah.
The one cigar that I was really kind of excited about, and I think that they had already released it, but they just kind of got rolling here at TPE, was that Don Doroteo.
Yeah.
And when I had smoked it, I was like, damn, this is a really good cigar. And I wasn't expecting that. I thought, I came in with low expectations, I guess, to some degree. But Garrett's my friend, and I was going to support him regardless. I just wound up really supporting him. I'm like, okay, this is the real deal. I'm getting behind it 100%.
They spent a pretty penny to put together that booth.
Yeah.
That was not a small booth, and that was not inexpensive what they threw together. That was I'm like a gypsy compared to that. My God.
I miss the old Steve Saka casting couch that you had when you had just started.
Oh,
that was
comfortable.
We still have that.
Dust that thing off, put a camera in front of it, make it awkward.
We just same old shit. I'm not buying a new PCA booth.
I don't blame you.
John, was there anything that you were looking forward to heading into the show, like release wise?
No, and it's not because there wasn't anything new to show off. It's because, to be frank, most of the stuff that was being shown off at the show, we got a press release before the trade show. So I appreciate the press release. So in a way, you could say, do they necessarily need to show off something new at the show? I don't know that they do. I don't know that that's the attraction. That's not why I go. It's certainly a big part of why I go to the PCA, but to Steve's point and a lot of what Mike was saying, like, when it comes around, like, are you going to the TP? I don't know. Like, it's kind of at a weird time. I just spent a bunch of money on this fancy studio that no one will sponsor me for. I don't know if I can afford that, but I go because, I've made friends and relationships in the industry, and it's kind of nice to spend time with them, go to their booth and find out how things are going, and physically see the product that I've got a press release for. And for me, a lot of the times the press release isn't kind of as sexy as seeing the product on display. So a lot of what we saw was stuff we already kind of knew about. There were certainly a few products where we didn't necessarily know about, or I just, because I don't publish the press releases, I wasn't aware. But I've never really thought of TPE as this is where we're launching a new product show. This is kind of almost the lead in, the teaser for we're launching a product in April. So this is your chance to kind of buy it now, or you can wait to the PCA and we might have something new, but maybe we don't.
But what was Drew Estate's big release? What was that thing called with the 2-in-1 in it? Oh, come on, guys.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's got that one acid and like the two.
It's got 2 acid and 1 undercrown, I
Right.
think.
Oh, was it
Right.
that how it was? Oh, okay.
Right.
It's like
Eh,
getting into start with infused and
Yeah.
finish.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's how they get you. Yeah. But I mean, so Steve, I think you said at the top of the hour, a lot of the soft packs, and shockingly, that was the thing that kind of stood out to you the most, is the number of retailers, the number of exhibitors that had soft packs, and they're like, yeah, we're going with soft packs. It gives people a chance to get 3 or 5 cigars, try our offerings, and I'm like, that makes sense. That's a smart move, especially if someone's not familiar with their brand. And we saw that from a number of exhibitors, and it's not sexy, but it doesn't have to be sexy because you're there to do business. You're not there to necessarily satisfy all the media people that are coming for free cigars. You're there to actually do business. So I thought it's a typical TPE for me, and I was happy to go. And
You also have to understand a lot of those packs that they exhibit in their booths are there because of P&K. In other words, they may just be doing those packs for P&K.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. But yet, because they're at P&K show, they're definitely going to show it in their booth.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
So I mean, a lot of that stuff is already like funneled into those channels.
Yeah.
I think
And I mean, we
was
certainly, good. I was just going to say, we did get a chance to try some, early try some product that, isn't necessarily on the market, or some product that just got released in the market. The problem is that whether it's Vegas in February or whether it's Vegas in July, it's literally the worst place on earth next to where I smoke to sample a cigar. So, I smoke it and I'm like, well, it's good, but is it good because I'm sitting here talking with Steve and I kind of like him, and, he I've warmed up to him, and he's a good guy and I like his cigars? Or is it because it's a really good cigar? Well, I won't know until I take it home and let it sit for 90 days and try it to really know. So again, I don't know from our perspective that it's really a product driven showcase as much as is a relationship management, and just kind of reaffirming that, hey, yeah, we're still around, we're still here, we're still doing things, and talk about strategy for what the 2023 plan looks like for all the exhibitors.
Which is why I think Fuente kind of just popped in quietly,
Yeah.
not taking orders, but they were there. Hey, we're here. You want to talk to us, or whatever the case may be.
Right.
But
that's what I've always said. If eventually, if PCA, the ROI isn't there, we'll just reduce ourselves to that. Like I said, I'm going to go down with the ship, but I mean, I'm going to scale back as necessary. Right. What I hope is, I'd love for a future where I add another, 4 booths. I can only hope the future is that bright.
Mm-hmm.
But I was one of the few booths last year that grew physically in size.
Yeah.
Because the previous year it wasn't enough. This time around, it was the right amount of space for us.
Right.
But we'll see. Maybe this year it'll be too much space.
Speaking of growth,
I was just gonna, before you moved on, I was gonna say, turn the question around you, because you always get to ask the questions. You never get to answer the questions. You do all the press releases. What was your take kind of going in with the product releases and what you saw versus, all the press releases we kind of put up prior to the show?
Yeah, I mean, there were 2 cigars I was interested in checking out, but those were just selfish reasons for me wanting to see them. I was curious about the Cavalier Geneva Tres Delinquentes because of the price point. I'm curious to see what Sebastian could do with a lower price cigar, to see what that would look like. And then the new series from Casa 1910. I haven't really been impressed with anything the 2 series before, but they now are going to the Dominican and Tobacco de Isla, which is putting out some pretty good cigars. So kind of curious to see what that was going to look like. But other than that, there wasn't anything that was really, I think, drawing me in or saying, oh, you got to go check this out, kind of a thing. I mean, I felt like there was a lot of releases from Altadis that was out there, but that's kind of the standard fare. Got an H Upman, we got a Romeo. So, it's not anything that's going to be really exciting. But as we typically know, that's not what happens at this show. This is not the release show. Not saying that it may not be in the future, but at this point, it's not the release show. I think it's to try to see, do you have products, or can you bring a product that can make people come over from the other side of the aisle and want to make an order or something like that. So or try to fill in with other retailers that are coming to stay in that cigar area to see if that works out for you. So getting FaceTime with people and things like that, I think that works out for a lot of people, because it's not it's not a release show. So that's kind of my view on it. But we get a lot more FaceTime with people at this trade show than we do at PCA, just because I think the lower traffic and things like that, maybe they're not as busy. We're not as busy, so we can spend a lot more time together, which is nice. It's nice to be able to do that, especially when we don't all live by each other. So we get maybe 2 times a year to see each other, and 1 time a year we get to see each other for 5 minutes. The other time we get to spend maybe a couple hours together. So it's nice. But talking about, sorry, go ahead.
Would have been a perfect opportunity to bring T-shirts.
It would have been.
That's smart. That's
But,
smart. You should have emailed that. That would have been a good suggestion.
Yeah, exactly. We'll take it into account for next year. Yeah. But talking about growth a little bit, the show floor grew over last year. Just looking at it from my eyes, looking at the cigar area, I wouldn't really tell you that I saw a lot of growth. Maybe a couple of booths got bigger. Maybe a couple of those companies moved out into the blue carpet, and that was the growth. But where I saw the growth was when I tried to go to the food court, and I was like, I was like in vacation. I had taken my pants off. I put them over my head. I used my belt to strap it up so that I was like I was blocked from the sun, so I could make it all the way down to the end to get some of that water. That was a long walk. That was way longer than I ever remember it being. And the walk back was very far as well. So the growth, there was definitely a lot of growth on the other side on the blue carpet. So as you guys said earlier, the money is there. They're spending money. There's money to be made. There's a lot of those vendors there. So cigar side, I don't know what you guys think. On the cigar side, I didn't feel like there was a huge amount of growth, but the rest of the space, yes, it's quite big. What do you guys think?
I think that if on the cigar side we said, hey, we're gonna go.
Yeah.
All right, man. Thanks so much for coming. Thanks for trying it. Blew all the way. I think that's the reality of it. And I think that when you land next time, you need to go to Costco. You need to get yourself some snackies. You need to get your own water, and that way you don't have to deal with the bullshit down in the cafeteria.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong, because it was like walking the taxi gauntlet in Nicaragua, right? It was just like every 5 feet, I'm like, no gracias, no gracias, no gracias, no gracias, and you can only do it. And as Aaron said, like I looked at my watch at one point, I'm like, God, I feel like we're gonna get a third of our steps today just going to the food court and coming back. Like I don't know how many times I can do this before I'm just like, listen, I got a cigar in my mouth. Clearly, I'm not interested, but they were not deterred. Kudos to them. They are hungry and they are working those booths. So, a lot of good energy.
Yeah, it reminds me of the old days when you'd be walking around the IPCPR floor and you get a tens unit company every 5 minutes went trying to pull you in to do that, or they want to sell you some phone cases or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Little too friendly for, I don't expect that kind of level of friendliness out of the cigar industry. It's always fucking McTavish versus hey, how are you? I'm like, they are way too friendly to actually be interested in me. Yeah. This is a trick. I'm not going to fall for this again.
That's one of the nice things about TPE. The customers are genuinely happier. They really are. I mean, it's a much happier vibe.
Oh yeah,
okay,
for sure.
Yeah, we get a little bit of that contact high, and I love the ones that straggle over into our world.
Yeah.
Right, but like on day 3, I sat down with one guy for like an hour talking about horticulture, how we do this with tobacco, and he's teaching me about how they do it with weed, and we were talking about, well, this is very similar, and this is it's like literally 45 minutes, 50 minutes with this dude, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if he's an expert in growing weed, but fucking convince me,
Do you see a lot of crossover opportunities, Steve? Like I know you talked about how your products are obviously positioned for a lot of the sort of larger retailer type customers, the quick retail
Right.
customers that are there. Do you see a lot of crossover opportunities from people coming over from the blue carpet that maybe are looking to pick up some DTT?
Not pick up DTT, but I think they see, look, one of the things you have to understand is so much of what these stores sell is on such a very low margin.
Right.
Okay. That's the reason why they put the glassware and the CBD in and all that stuff, is because there's some places that they can make money. Cigars turn out to be really good for the physical footprint of space that they take, for the amount of money that they generate is really quite high. Now, for a big retailer, this is a problem because you have to stock so much of it, right? So you have literally hundreds of thousands of dollars tied up in cash. But when you're that small guy that has 2 cases in your store, what's it cost to populate those cases? You know what I mean? He's basically going to end up buying, 12, 15 boxes of cigars to populate his case. So, it's really about having a product that makes sense for that consumer. Will Dunbarton have one in the future? Maybe so. I mean, I've already run into a problem where I have to make a lower mi querida, right?
Mhm.
An umbagog. So I'm going to run into this problem because of Brulee. Brulee has been doing really, really well, which is God bless. But I'm running into wrapper sort problems. To keep the quality of the wrapper so high on Brulee, I'm having to stuff up too much wrapper. And it's really too much to sell secondhand because I'm not going to get my money out of it. So it's kind of like the same situation with the broadleaf that doesn't make mi querida getting used on umbagog. I'm going to have to come up with a lower price product to use this uglier Connecticut shade on if I want to keep Brulee growing and looking the way it looks.
I got one for you. Mi querida G Fresh. You put a little tip on it. It sounds like a great idea. Maybe the timing was off. I don't know.
Yeah, there you go. Or maybe we could get a hybrid cigar with a vape tip. So as you draw on the burning cigar, it always also pulls a little vape juice in at the same time.
With a battery.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
So yeah.
I don't even think any of you guys remember this, but during the cigar boom, there was a cigar plushie toy that had a pull string. And it would say all these really stupid statements, right? This thing debuted in 1996. The guy that did this, he did $3 million in this fucking talking plushie doll. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. None of you guys have ever seen one of those.
I don't, but at TPE 24, you will see me with a vape plushie toy, I bet.
Yeah,
So.
I'm telling you, man, there's money in that shit. Just think about it. If you made a cute vape plushie in all kind of unicorn colors and it had little cutesy sayings.
Yep.
Dude, you must be printing the money.
There you go. We should all just team up on that.
I don't mean to date myself here, but in all fairness, in 1996, I was 12. So I was not partaking at that point.
All right, let's talk about the industry part that we kind of touched on real quick. Mike was talking about the weather. Did you attend the party, Steve?
I did not.
Okay, you did,
It
Mike,
was
for
fucking cold.
a moment.
It was cold.
I can confirm it was, and I say this as a Canadian, it was fucking cold.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very cold. Yeah, I looped in. I did a quick walk around and made an exit and sat outside back into the casino where I smoked my cigars and just kind of hung out.
Yeah.
And I got to JD walking, and he said that he had fallen into the pool and that he was wet.
Oh.
So I mean, that's
Alright.
gotta be. I mean, the pool had to be freezing. So I don't know how far he got in, if it was just his foot or whatnot. Like that about wraps up the after party for me. It was great example there. I feel like a lot of people I saw people going in, getting plates of food and then just leaving and going back to their rooms with the actual plates.
Yeah.
I'm like, damn, that is cold-blooded, but smart. But I saw a lot of that. So I mean, it was just cold, man. It was just cold. So nobody was hanging out. Not from what I saw. I mean, there were people there, but
Right. Yeah.
it was nowhere near the number from the year prior when it was shiny and new. It's like, wow, this is awesome. This is incredible. You know?
Yeah, but it was also temperate. I mean,
Yes.
I just knew I wasn't going just because it was so damn cold.
Right.
I mean, come on. Outside on the pool, 70-mile-an-hour winds, 40 degrees outside. No, thank you.
Sounds like a good time. I didn't bring my North Face jacket, so
Yeah.
I did bring my North Face jacket, but I did not want it getting smoky because I'm a princess like that. So I was like, nope, not doing it. Not
But
gonna
it's
smell like
outside, so
that on
you're
my
in a
shit.
good spot. You get a little
Yeah.
smoky, but it's not that bad.
well, you're Canadian. You should have several North Face jackets.
What do you-
I should
don't even-
actually,
I don't
yeah.
even understand this. You don't want your jacket to smell smoky?
Well, because I have I have officially transitioned from an outdoor smoker to an indoor smoker because I'm bougie now. So I didn't bring my traditional Arctic smoking fare because number one, I apparently didn't look at the long-term forecast like a dummy. And number two, I didn't bring what would have been the perfect jacket for that weather because I didn't think I'd need it. So again,
I'm still stuck on you have certain jackets you don't smoke in.
Saka's right. Every jacket's a smoking jacket. I mean,
And
how
what is
one not-
this? What sort of guy are you?
we
Yeah.
don't
Reach
have
out
the
there and
kind of-
check. Somebody give him a check.
we don't have the kind of time to dive into why I have separate jackets for smoking and how my
I don't
my
want to.
wife-
There should be no reason
Yeah.
whatsoever. There's none that's acceptable.
Do you smoke in your car, John?
I do not smoke in my car.
Wow.
Yeah.
I gotta go. Thank you so much for having me.
I can't not smoke in my car.
Yeah,
It's like
I
a
mean,
seatbelt, baby. I gotta light up.
it's a right to passage. I'm not getting on the interstate without one.
Oh yeah.
The food situation was a little iffy at the party. So you get in line, you get your plate, you get your mashed potatoes, you get your asparagus, you get your lobster mac and cheese, and you
Frozen
get your
mashed
roll.
potatoes.
And then you're like, where's the meat? And then you're looking over yonder as you are on the blue carpet, and you're like, oh, the meat's over there. And you're like, I'm gonna go get the meat. And then you start getting over there and you see this like weird, like snake line. And you're like, where's the end of this thing? And you keep looking and you keep walking and you keep looking and you keep walking and you keep looking and you keep walking. And you find the end of the line, and then you're like, you eat in the line everything that you collected so far so that you can make it up to the meat with an empty plate so they can
And
give
so
you
you don't get frostbite
slices
from the
of meat.
plate.
So
I did have a moment with
What do you
the
want for
guy-
free, people?
Yeah. I had a moment where I don't know how long we were in that line for, but I feel like it was about 20 minutes. And we got up to the front and the meat looked great. I mean, it was great meat. But the guy kind of carved me off these kind of two little ends, right? Kind of had it put two ends and kind of, there you go. And I kind of looked at him like, is that how you're going to do me? Like, I just spent 20 minutes and like, you're going to give me two, like, that's basically 3 ounces of meat. Really? Is that? And he goes, okay, I can give you one more. And then, and I'm like, I mean, I'm not a big guy, but I like to tear loose when I'm at the trade show and eat a lot. And, I was a little disappointed with how they were kind of rationing out the meat, perhaps because, they needed to feed a lot of people. But I think what surprised me, Aaron, is that last year it was all kind of in the one pool area. And I thought the food service went pretty well. Like, it was very well organized. I felt like the food stations kind of flowed pretty nicely. It was clean lines. You kind of went up, did your whole thing, got your meat at the end of the station, the buffet station, and you were good. Was it just that there were so many more people attending the industry dinner? Like, I was confused because this whole other area was also completely filled with people getting food.
Yeah, I think that was the case where they got bad feedback that they got it too backed up last year or something like that. But yeah, they moved it over. But yeah, I mean, the way that the lines were set up with all these like weaving parts of it, it's good when people are like polite and things like that, and like say, oh, here's a line, I'll get in the line and stuff like that. But when you start getting up to the front, you're a little bit more, I think I'm a little more observant of like who's like trying not to follow the rules. And when they start coming in from the other side to try to get up to the front, I'm like, hey, I'm from the red carpet. I'm not as happy as the rest of these guys, so you're not going to be able to take advantage of it. So we have to bump a couple people out of line from trying to get the easy, quick meat. But
Knock them out of line.
Well, kind of gave them a nice little eye contact for a little bit to make sure they understood that I see how you're entering the line and it's not appreciated. So when the guy wants to do it and you make eye contact with his wife and his wife gets him out of line, that's the play. Right.
You know how you solve all this? You just be like me and just say, I'm never eating a fucking place where I have to stand in a goddamn line.
Well, yeah, I understand.
There you go.
Yeah,
that solves that problem for the rest of your life. I just don't do it.
Yeah.
That night it was amazing.
Yeah. So, but you tout tomahawks, you got to give out some meat. You can't just like go super easy on it. So, all right. So anything we want to talk about the rest of this show, or we can start talking about going like moving ahead, like some PCA stuff or TPE next year kind of thing.
I have a couple topics
Go
I
ahead.
want to talk about. So
Unreal.
last year it kind of seemed like, because it seemed like more industry people staying in the Sahara. And maybe that's just me judging by the sort of morning cigar group, because we had a pretty good morning cigar group. I'd roll in at 6 a.m. and there was 6-7 industry people there having cigars and having their coffee. And I kind of missed that this year. And I got the impression that a lot more people maybe didn't enjoy their experience, or they just wanted to go to a different hotel. But with the Resorts World and with some of the other hosted hotels, it seemed like people were a lot more spread out this year. Did you guys experience that at all? Like, what was your take on that?
Yeah, I knew Resorts World was another one of the hotels that TPE was working with, and then I think some other people were staying over at the Palazzo, so it definitely seemed like it was spread out a bit more than previous years.
I brought my own coffee. I picked up cold brew at Costco. I was not, I always saw the line at Starbucks in the morning, and I was not about to partake, so that's why I was not downstairs for the morning coffee, scenario, I guess. I just brought a 12-pack of cold brew and rocked and rolled, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think people were more spread out. There were a lot of people staying in a lot of different hotels this time.
Yeah.
Part of the reason why is because the Sahara is kind of a dump. It's a mixed bag. It looks nice downstairs, but upstairs, some of those rooms, I mean, you get lucky, you can get a perfectly great room, but you get unlucky, you get a real dog type of room.
I'll tell you, Steve, I definitely rolled the snake eyes this year.
John
Last year,
out,
I did pretty well for myself. This year, they must have had me in the system. They're like, Canadian, maybe he doesn't tip very well, kind of a dick. Let's put him over in the other non-working elevator tower.
Yes.
And I was like, is this New York? Like this room is like I've had apartments that were bigger than this. Like our apartment bathrooms that are bigger than this room. Like, what did I do?
I've never seen the bathroom sink situation in John's room in any other hotel ever.
Bro, like I could literally use the sink from my bedroom.
In the room when they built it, and it was an afterthought.
It was I mean, if I can tell you right now, if I decide to return to the TPE, there's a 0% chance that I would be staying at the Sahara again. 0%. It was unequivocally, especially for Vegas, which is kind of supposed to be I don't know what you want to call it, an experience-based place. That was a 0% experience. It was a miserable experience.
It just sucks. That's the problem.
Yeah, it was terrible.
It's a sucky experience.
Yeah.
So let's just review here real quick. So you were interrogated by the Germans at the border as you were going home.
As is normal.
They didn't want to feed you at the Tobacco Expo.
Correct.
There was no coffee meeting thing in the morning.
No coffee meetings in the morning.
And your room sucked.
My room sucked. No, you missed the key one. Don't make a cigar guy walk up and down stairs at a convention after pulling, 12,000 steps a day. That's where you pretty much break a guy's back, where you're like, I'm sorry, the elevator doesn't work. You're gonna have to take the stairs. Thank God I was staying on the 5th floor, because if it was the 12th floor or the 15th floor, some of these poor souls, 17th floor, I probably would have just tapped out at that point.
No, I'm not. I'm not staying on the 17th floor.
No.
I took, so at the end of, I think day 1 or day 2, Ronnie from Secreto, he hits me up and we're talking. He's like, oh, I guess I'll go sit in the Uber line. I'm like, oh, I got a rental car or whatever. Just jump in. I'll take you over there. Right. So I go to take him over there, and I guess I went the long way. He let me know. He goes, I just want you to know that, when I put the Uber ride last time. It was a lot faster than when
He's giving you the 3 stars as you're riding. You're like, bro, this is a free ride. What are you talking
Hey,
about?
you're welcome, dude. No. Have a good day. So,
Dude, he never stops.
Yeah.
Ronnie in
What?
typical fashion. Man.
Always Ronnie. It's crazy.
Remarkable.
All right, John, what
Give me-
else? Do you have anything?
You know,
But
he
that was
liked-
it. That was kind of the and I don't think that was anything on the TPE because they don't run the hotel. But like I said, it was a marked difference between my experience at the Sahara last year, which was it was fine. I mean, you got the same kind of room that I did last year, which I was like, this is a fun room. There's no issues with it. There was plenty of people staying at the hotel, so we had that kind of morning hangout and then the sort of post show afternoon hangout. And I felt like that was a bit lacking this year because people were a little more spread out and they realized. Maybe I don't want to stay at a dumpy hotel.
Yeah.
Which
I
is
think
a
you're
reasonable
I think you're going to
decision.
see more people stay over at Resort World because A,
Absolutely.
it's nice, and
Yeah.
B, it's got some interesting stuff, and C, because of 8.
Yeah,
And
8's a
because
cool lounge.
a lot of cigar guys ended up at 8 pretty much 3 nights of the 4 they were there, right?
Yeah.
So why not just stay in the same damn hotel for God's sakes?
Yeah.
Just think about you're going to save an Uber and the potential of doing something really stupid in that drunken stupor from 8 to your room. So
Yeah.
yeah.
8 is pretty packed though, and if more people go over there, it's going to be nuts. So
So before we move on, I just want to say 2 things. Number one, if John actually wound up with an Uzi and wiped out like an entire city or something like that, I would be like, yeah, I get it. I understand he lost it and he finally hit his breaking point. It makes sense to me. Consider that when he goes to jail. And number 2 is the one thing that you haven't talked about at all is a $72.5 million discussion that everybody had an opinion on during this show. Are we moving?
Yeah,
on?
Something happened.
we could talk
Did
about
something
it.
happen at the trade show?
Yeah, we can talk about it. I mean, it wasn't necessarily TP related,
I thought
but
it was like
at the time,
76.5.
so
It was appropriately dropped right before TPE.
yes, it was. So
I actually thought that was a mistake, honestly.
yeah, I would agree with that.
No orders at TPE as a result.
Yeah, who's gonna write
I
an order
mean,
when they just found out the
right.
company
So
got
I
bought
mean,
out?
they would have been much smarter to drop that news the week after rather than
Oh yeah.
before.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this is an
I didn't
ego.
like the timing of it. Huh?
But it's an ego-driven industry. So the thought was, yeah, let's show them what's up. You know what I mean?
I'd rather collect an extra $1 million and then I can have my ego on Monday.
Yeah.
Right.
So for
That's
the-
from a
for-
logical standpoint.
So for the 2 viewers that are tuned in and somehow didn't clue into the news during the trade show or didn't clue into the news afterwards, we're talking about the Scandinavian Tobacco Group's acquisition of Alec Bradley, which I think was $76.5 million and was announced kind of, I don't even think the show had opened. I think
No.
we were literally,
It was
because we got
Wednesday
media early
morning.
access. So we got media early access and Aaron was hopping out of the shower and he's like, oh, okay, well, I guess this is happening. And so, yeah, it went up before the show even opened.
Yeah.
A little bit of a
So,
surprise for some people.
Obviously, first question that everybody at the Alec Bradley booth gets is, what's happening? What's going on?
Well, there's no answer to that. I mean, it's the same as always. A
Yeah.
company gets bought by another company and nothing changes immediately. And
Yeah.
eventually everything changes. And that's just the way it always works.
Yeah. I think it caught a bunch of people off guard in regards to Alec Bradley, and probably a bit unfair to them that they had to answer questions the
That's
whole
just because
time.
they're judging things from their small perspective of what's just in their humidor is the only thing they see. And they're not understanding that Alec Bradley is a very wide selling brand when it comes through distribution, and particularly a lot of it through STG and Cigars International. I mean, they're by far their biggest customer. So, I mean, part of when you look at this buyout price that I know seems crazy at face value, maybe it isn't as crazy when you understand that just next year alone, you're probably going to pocket $4 to $6 million in just direct savings.
Mhm.
Now that you don't have this company in the middle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just like gravy on top before we even talk about anything else.
Yeah.
That's just instant guaranteed, $4 to $6 million extra cash. And that's something the shareholders really love to see happen.
Oh yeah.
Doesn't it sadden you a little bit that it was only 72.5 or $76 million? I mean, I know that sounds like a lot.
No, it's a lot, actually, I think.
Seems
Mike.
like a lot.
It is a lot, yeah. I mean,
It's what, three times
Yeah,
2022 revenue?
yeah, I mean, and look, it's not like they had a high margin of profit either, right? I know the EBITDA was published. I saw it.
6.5 million EBITDA, I think.
Yeah, was it that high?
Yeah, it seemed like a pretty healthy.
It had to
EBITDA
be
when I was looking at the
adjusted.
EBITDA numbers. Yeah,
I'm
it
sure
was
they-
adjusted EBITDA.
Okay. So, well, that's what EBIT is anyways. What am I talking about? But yeah, I mean, I don't know, but when you start thinking about just that alone, how much
It's
that
healthy.
saves you, it's real money.
Yep.
And it also gives you a chance to add another brand to your stable that has a lot of consumer recognition because they've been beating the Alec Bradley drum now for 2 decades plus, right?
Mhm.
Yep.
So you have a built-in customer that's already there. The brand has some awareness that's very good, way better than my brand, I can tell you that. So yeah, I can see how this mathematically works out, and the number isn't as crazy as a lot of people think it is.
And the fact that you don't have to worry about a factory or anything like that to take on, the sales staff probably gets let loose and you just go with the Forge team that's already there. That cuts more costs as well. So yeah, I mean, you could see a lot of good things for increasing revenue right off the
Right, you
bat.
get a lot of efficiencies, you know what I mean? It's all gonna be imported next, everything's gonna be together now. Yeah, no, it does make sense. I think it's just we as consumers, as cigar geeks, we just look at Alec Bradley as a brand that was already past its prime,
Mm,
right? And for us, yeah, but we're not those type of cigar smokers.
right.
For the cigar smoker that smokes Alec Bradley, it's a product in a really good position, is what it is.
I guess
What were your
that's it.
thoughts, Mike?
I don't know, man. It's I don't like 72 or 75 million just doesn't seem like it's a ton of money. I mean, I guess I understand that there's justification and more vertical integration and all those things for STG, but I don't know. I felt like when I heard retailers saying, "Oh, Alec Bradley," I'm like, I don't think you was Saka saying, like, I don't think you understand how big of a deal this is for STG, and it makes sense for them. And when I heard that was kind of the number that was determined, I was like, that just seemed kind of low to me. I don't know. It was like it was kind of sad, I guess, as far as
What are you talking about, Mike? It's 10 times EBITDA.
and that's my point. Even if it's, I'm saying that the value is probably
But
justified.
but I think here's the problem. It's just cigar businesses just aren't worth what people think they make.
That's my point.
It's just such a. I mean, so here you have a company 20 odd years later, and look, they're making a healthy EBITDA, right? But I bet before the adjustments, I bet it's only about 3, right? Because that seems to be about all we can eke out in our industry. We're lucky if we can ever even sniff 10% net profit.
That
Yeah,
is sad.
Contrary to popular belief, no one in the cigar industry is raking in those fat stacks. I mean, people think you guys are raking in fat stacks, but having seen behind the curtain.
Yeah, but part of it is because we're obligated to act that way too, because people like to bet on winners, right?
Mhm.
So, that's a problem too. So you got to be careful about that. But I mean, ultimately, there's only 2 ways to make money in our business, and that is be multi-generational and just continue to grind and build to a point that you get to a very nice equilibrium like the Fuentes and the Padrones have, or you get bought. There's no other way to make money in the cigar business. Real money. Yeah, if you're doing good, you might be able to earn a living, but
Right.
there's no other avenue towards like real money. That's it.
Right.
You need that yacht money.
And
Yeah.
you don't get yacht money in the cigar business very often. You really don't.
You can spend yacht money, but it's tough to acquire yacht money.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just it isn't. I don't know. It's in.
All right,
It's
are we ready to
definitely- it's
look
definitely a
ahead?
buyer's market more than a seller's market. Let me say that.
Sure.
Right.
All right, let's look ahead. Steve, are you planning to go to TPE next year?
Yes.
Mike, are you planning to go to TPE next year?
How do you want me to answer that question? I told you I didn't know I was going with this one. I think that if I'm going to go, and I hope to God I remember this, I'm going to go day 2, day 3.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Good play.
enough.
I like that.
Are you going, John?
It is going to be a game time decision. And I would say, and I'm pretty open about, my opinions on stuff. Obviously, I'm a media guy. So like, you want to know my opinion, I'll give it to you. I think that the PCA move is going to have a big impact on my decision-making for next year. I think if the PCA decides to move up to some of the rumored dates, which these are all rumors, as always, rumors in the industry aren't truth. It could be March, it could be April. If it's March or April and it's still in Vegas, that makes it a very tough decision for me. Just like, a lot of the smaller manufacturers, I am also not raking in cash from the cigar industry. And so this money comes out of my pocket to attend the industry. I mean, the TPE, to their credit, makes it extremely available for us. They do everything within their power to make it a trade show for us to attend. They do everything to support us. They, they have a hosted program for their hotels, which is very appreciative. And so that softens the blow. But for me to go down to Vegas, and I think the dates for TPE next year would be end of January, sort of rolling into February, then to turn around and come back to Vegas in 3 months. I'm Canadian, I enjoy Vegas, but I don't enjoy Vegas that much. And, to do a winter Vegas and then kind of a spring Vegas, that's a lot of Vegas for me. So if that's the case, I would say it's going to have to be a game time decision. And kind of like our discussion this year, I'll have to talk to the developing Palates team and see who's interested in going. And that's probably going to be a decision I make, November, December of like, am I attending or am I not? I may have to skip it, but I may be there. It's tough to say. What about you, Aaron?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. It depends on kind of what happens with PCA. If they're stacked up like that, the dates for PCA may just not work out for me. I have a every other year trip I take around that time, around spring training for baseball. So unfortunately, baseball wins over cigars for me in that case. So
that is a guy that is seasoned in the industry.
100%. All right, so let's talk about TPE 2024. Let's say we're all attending. All right. Is there anything that you would do differently in regards, and kind of like you've already talked about this about attending. So in your kind of in your space. So Steve as an exhibitor, Mike, you as a retailer, media. Is there anything that you would do differently next year than what you've done this year or previous years, just kind of based on your experience from this past year? I'll give it to you, Mike, just to kind of go. You can rehash your day 2, day 3 thing. Anything else that you might want to?
I mean, I would dumb down the time that I'm there, to be honest. And I think that the reality is the PCA moves in a little bit closer to them. I think PCA is the victor when it comes to crushing one or the other.
Right.
If TPE tried to make a move on PCA, I don't think that it would flourish at all. I don't think that they really care enough, to be honest.
Yeah.
They got a way bigger thing going on. So, I would dumb down my time there. I fucking hate Vegas at this point. I can't think of, I way too much for the food, and it's always kind of subpar. It's like, it's good, but it's like, damn, that was
not for that price. Yeah.
Yeah. And it is expensive. There's more cost than that, as far as travel and then time and then recovery, and I hate missing my kids' games, man. I hate it. And I missed a lot of games. They had 3 back-to-back games that Friday, and nothing irritated me more than completely missing that. 4. I'm getting the 4 signal. 3 from one and then 1 from the other. So
such a bad dad.
Yeah,
You're the worst.
I'm
throw that bum out now.
Get him out of here. But like at the end of the day, I take care of my health and my family first, and then like everything else is kind of out afterwards. So when I had realized that this was happening, if I had realized that I was going to have 4 games on Friday, I wouldn't have gotten a TPE. I would have said, forget it. I'm not missing.
But the reality for you, Mike, is you don't have to go to either show if you didn't want to, and that's what's happened. Is so many retailers have made that decision. I think for me that's a problem, because I do think there is value in that face-to-face time of being at a trade show, and it doesn't even have to be a trade show. It could literally be a 1-week meet and greet. You know what I mean?
Right. But it wouldn't have broken you as far as sales wise. Your orders would have been the same, probably.
Yeah, no, I don't think TPE didn't make us and it didn't break us.
Right.
Maybe we picked up an extra 150K earlier than we would have gotten But I think a lot of the orders we got were just kind of on par with the orders we get this time of year.
Right.
And also we have a price increase that's going into effect in a week, right? So we're getting those orders, people, getting ahead of the price increase. So it's kind of hard to tell where the upticks come from.
Yeah. All right, Steve, anything that you would do differently next year at TPE based on your experience from this year or previous years?
Yeah, I would drink more. I didn't drink enough this year. I really didn't. The previous year we managed to polish off 5 bottles in 3 days. This year we only did 2. So definitely the pace of the alcohol consumption was down, and I find that to be a very disturbing statistic. Honestly, no. Like I said, for us TP is kind of a placeholder, right? See where things shake out. So I don't really personally see a reason why I would invest more money into it.
Yeah.
Now I did see some booths that were. I like the way the Black Label Trading guys booth snaps together with those hard panels. I may do that, because I just like it.
Yeah.
But it's more just, but I'd be making that investment for the other trade show, and we would just double dip and use it at both.
Right. Yeah.
One thing that seemed weird was the bathrooms were fucking atrocious. I don't know if you guys did it all. It seemed like there was no maintenance whatsoever for any of that.
There's no trash pickup either.
Yeah, and like I took a picture of a post that got knocked over and it was just left there. Somebody else had to walk around and say, yeah, I guess.
I just look at it as all fitting in with that weed kind of, eventually we're all going to be on the street kind of theme. I just kind of looked at it that way. The other thing that amazed me in the bathroom is I've never been in a bathroom where so many people slap their business cards to the top of the urinal.
I saw the same car on the same urinal
right?
like 3 days in
I
a
mean,
row.
it's an escort service, but it's all these booths and they got all their cards. Like, really just me pissing and looking at your card, is it going to make me go to buy whatever, penis shit
it was a Toro point of sale system, and that was Costa 100%.
Yeah, it was. That's exactly the one I was referencing.
I was
3 days in a row.
What is this? And then I saw it to I'm like, God damn it, Costa. Come on, man.
You're better than that, bro.
But it works because we're talking about it. So
Yep.
It doesn't make anyone visit your booth.
No.
No.
All right, John, anything you do differently next year?
Yeah, I think if I committed to attending next year, I think I would, like Mike, I think I would shorten my days. And part of that is, again, what brought me back this year was that morning experience, which was kind of fragmented. So I didn't get that at all. So it's kind of a waste of the morning. I'd probably roll the dice and fly in on the Wednesday instead of the Tuesday. And I might possibly fly out on the Friday instead of the Saturday, which I have always hated to do. But like Mike was saying, I'm giving up some of my vacation time, some of my personal time to do that. So to get back that Saturday, come back banged up on Friday, I might as well come back banged up on Friday and at least sleep in a little bit on Saturday and have a full day rather than sort of the half day. So I would almost certainly cut my days of attendance down to sort of minimum amount, which is unfortunate because
it takes me 2 days to recover from that trip.
Oh yeah, no, I'm like,
it really
you can't tell right now.
It takes me 2 days.
My eyes are actually closed right now. I'm using a filter to make it look like my eyes are open, but I'm talking with my eyes closed. I'm trying to get. I have to go. I have to drive into the office tomorrow, and I honestly don't know how I'm going to function because I'm not going to be up to regular brain power till probably Thursday of this week. So it takes a lot to recover from the trade show.
Yeah,
I can't imagine going back and sorry.
I'm on the same lines as you, John. I would shorten the trip. I flew out Tuesday night, flew out Saturday morning. Yeah, I would. The year before I flew in Wednesday morning. You were already out there, John. So it worked out for me because the thing I don't like about flying in Wednesday morning is having like to go to the hotel, drop your bags off somewhere. So I don't want to take the bags to the show. So and then maybe fly out Friday night, but kind of lose that night, an extra night to hang out. But maybe it is worth it. And I'd probably skip the party next year. The music is just too loud. Maybe it's just based on my age now, but it's just too loud. Like you can't have a conversation with anyone. You're standing out in the cold. It's not worth it for a free drink or two. stand in line for the food. So I think I might just go out and have a nice dinner somewhere or something like that, or hang out.
The conversations that you have there are just so bullshit anyways when it comes to that party, right? It's like,
Yeah.
how was your trip? I'm like, did you fly in okay? I'm like, that's
Yeah.
none of that. Like, dude, stop.
Right.
You know, it's like the
How's your
standard when I
brother
get
doing?
That's exactly right. Like,
Yeah.
how's your brother? I'm like, dude, you're just grasping for shit to talk to me about, and I don't need that. I don't
Yeah.
need it right now, and you don't need it. It's good to see you. If you want to talk about something real, I'm right here.
Yeah.
But other than that, we don't need to break the friggin' ice, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
We're staying. Like, give me a
No.
fucking break. What do you care? You don't care. I don't care. I don't care where
Yeah.
you're staying, you know?
So basically what I'm saying is I would like it if you guys could all have the trade show like 5 minutes from my house. So I could just come back
Perfect.
home and then come hang out with you guys during the day and then go back home and then hang out with
There
you
you
during the
go.
day.
Where
Love
is
that.
it?
California, Northern California. We could never have you here.
Oh yeah, you're fucked. Yeah.
Yeah, we could never have you here.
California would take us with open arms.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'd all
All
have
right.
our electrical cars.
Yes.
It'll be it'll be the start of the purge, is what it'll be.
Yeah. If they got us all there, that's when California would actually break off into the ocean. That's when it would happen. All right. What would you recommend that TPE changes for next year, if anything? And I'll just kind of open up to anybody that wants to jump in on that one.
I mean, listen, if you know in advance the weather's not going to be great, you probably should have a backup plan to serving food. And this is not necessarily TPE, but like as a part of that open dinner, you can't have 300-400 people standing in the cold, freezing their head. Like
But sadly, John, that's impossible.
I know it's impossible. It's
Yeah, I mean,
literally
what you're
impossible.
asking for is literally impossible.
Yeah. I realize that. You know, and I think
The thing is, if you just the better bet is just don't try to do an outside party,
right.
and you just get rid of that risk factor.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
you
one
could-
in 2020, was it, when they did it inside where they had like bizarre meat and then they had
Right.
the piano bar and then they had like the big thing where Drew Estate or Eli was DJing for in that amphitheater or whatever. I thought that was really cool because you had different areas. It was all inside. You could go outside if you wanted to at the piano bar and stuff like that. I really enjoyed that kind of setup because you could go do different things and you
Yeah.
weren't stuck out in the cold.
I think that, you know what, with any convention and as any kind of host of anything, it's important to always have something different the next year.
Yeah.
If it's the same as last year, it loses its lackluster. You know,
Yeah.
I'd much rather analyze it like you just did in comparison to the year prior when something was totally different than say, oh, it's the same party, you know? Ooh, you know, great. So, and plus those pools are very dangerous. So you can apparently
They did have a lifeguard, which was good for Jay. So he might have gone all the way in. You never know.
I heard some rumor of a fist fight. Was this a true rumor or not?
not at
Is that on the
liberty to-
Patreon, or we have to wait for the
I'm not
Patreon?
at liberty to speak about this in this current moment. It wasn't necessarily a fist fight, I wouldn't say, but
We can have that discussion, but maybe we should have that in when this show is off of Facebook.
yeah, I
But
mean, you know,
we will have that discussion, Steve. Don't worry.
it's much more important that the parties that be actually have the ability to speak on for themselves.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
I know no details. I'm just throwing grenades. That's all
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
doing.
We'll
it's a
give you
fun
the-
story. It's a fun story.
Very
Um,
entertaining.
I just don't know that I want to speak about it live.
Understood.
Yeah.
Tune in next
Um,
week.
Yeah. Make sure you tune in for sign up for the Patreon.
Mike and Mike podcast.
Yeah.
At the Mike Palmer
Cigar Hustler podcast.
Cigar Hustler Patreon. But going back to the root question, is there anything I could like think of that I think they should do differently? No, I think it's a fairly well-run trade show. I think it's really well organized. I think they do a good job of making everyone feel welcomed. I think they listen to feedback. I think they're doing all the things that are right, which is why people want to continue to come back and exhibit at the trade show, and why, you know, even if I had a bad experience at one of the host hotels, I'd still consider going back because everything else is pretty good. You know, it's a pretty well run trade show. So I don't really have any suggestions other than, boy, if you could do it indoors somehow, that would have been a big difference maker. But that's pretty minor in the grand scheme of things.
If you
Anything
guys
change,
told me
Steve?
that-
No.
If
Go
you
ahead,
guys
Mike.
told me weren't going. If you and Aaron weren't going, I'd be like, I don't know if I'm gonna go. I mean, you guys aren't going.
I appreciate
I'm like,
that. We did hang out. I mean, a significant amount of time. Significant amount of time.
I'd much preferably just kind of go where you guys are at and just kind of
Yeah.
because we're on the same page. You know,
Oh,
I
yeah.
run a lot of stuff, and you know, it's nice to have that camaraderie and that back and
Yeah.
forth. You know, I had no idea about your fish problem, and I had no idea about John's fish problem, the two totally different fish problems, which was fantastic. You know, but yeah, I would much rather just go if you guys aren't going. It's like probably not gonna go. So.
Anything you change about the show, Steve?
No, because I'm not a significant player, right? I have no vested interest in the show. So for me to have an opinion is kind of ridiculous.
Right.
I mean, I think the guys who are spending the money on the big booths, they're the ones that really should have an opinion. Look, I like them to try to keep us separated. So if there were booths in the other section, it's kind of unfair to them because they're just not going to get the foot traffic if they're not in the appropriate colored carpet section. So I'd like to see that not be the case.
Yeah.
I think I'd like to see them expand the pavilions.
Mhm.
I'd almost like to see them come up with I think even the pavilion guys, they might spring a little more money if they had like a preset 10 by 10 booth.
Yeah.
They could do, or it doesn't even have to be 10 by 10. If you really start thinking about it logically, they could take a row and do 8-foot wide booths. And that's essentially the amount of footprint that you're getting width-wise already in the kiosk, right?
Mm-hmm.
The pavilion.
Right.
There might be a market for a narrow kind of pre-established booth. Like we have a terrible booth. We just use a folding table to throw drape on top of it.
Yeah.
It's about as 1992 as you can get.
But it works, man. It works. Why would you do anything else? I don't, you know.
No, and we're not going to. Okay, I agree. It's very cost efficient, right? And everybody has a place to sit, and everybody has a place to write orders, and it looks a little weird, and it certainly isn't very attractive. Okay, and we have no way to showcase product, but yeah, it works.
Serves its purpose, man. It's so simple. I'm a big fan of that. You know, I love the Caldwell when he said, "Here's what you do: you go to Walmart, you buy the table. When it's all said and done, you return it and you just leave it disaster." Like so many people came down on him. I was laughing my ass off. I'm like, that is absolutely hilarious, man. You know.
All right, so we were talking earlier about how much money is kind of flowing around at this trade show. This is probably a rhetorical question, but how long do you think the incentives last for getting the retailers or the media to attend these events? Just until this starts to dry up, or what?
It goes back to whether I think it has entirely to do with the question for TPE. Do they want to really challenge PCA?
Mm-hmm.
They really want to challenge PCA. The only way they have any hope in hell of doing that is to do a very aggressive, too good to refuse buyer host program, right?
Yeah.
And it would have to be juicy, right? Where you're like, I got to take this. This is good. I'm not staying at the Sahara. I'm staying wherever. You know what I mean? At least Treasure Island or something. And I think that, but if they're happy with all the fat they're going to make off the alternative stuff, right? Which is really the rest of the world, they could just say, fuck it. Who gives a damn about that nonsense? We'll keep our little tobacco thing. Okay. You have to understand this whole thing began. The only reason why you exhibited at this trade show was because P&K was a big customer of yours and you were doing it as a courtesy.
Yeah.
And then the only reason why it expanded beyond that was because of everybody's dissatisfaction with PCA, right? That just people are just like looking for an alternative, wanting something differently. And look, we as manufacturers, we don't care. We just want wherever the buyers are going to go. Okay, that's what we want is the buyers. We have no loyalty one way or the other. No, that's not fair. We do have some vested loyalty in the PCA. We do. Okay, that's not a true statement. But ultimately, you do get to a point where you can't let it cloud your business decisions. Mm-hmm. And this is what's happened. We've lost a lot of exhibitors because the businesses don't jive anymore. Now, maybe that's irreconcilable. You know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe they can't come to a conclusion that's positive for both, but at least that's a business reason, you know? So it does ultimately come down to business.
Yeah, but like how cold-blooded is it? of the brand owners and manufacturers that actually take appointments at PCA that are not attending PCA. You know, I mean,
I agree. And it's a problem. And we saw a lot more of it last year with people that are just at the show with a suite and, hey, come up to my suite. And it's the companies that don't exhibit, which makes it
Right.
even worse.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know how you solve that problem though.
me neither, but it's just shitty, man. I mean,
Yeah,
come
Yeah, I
on.
agree. It's shitty, but guess what? These retailers still do business with these shitty companies.
I know.
They don't have to, but they choose to. So it's one of those things. The problem is it's just they let the trade show get out of control. They allowed the cost to go the way the cost went. And the reality of the sad part about it is most of the money never went into PCA's pocket. It just went into convention services. That's where all the real money is. The money that they collect for the booths is nominal. Their kickback in the hotel room, it's nice, okay, on the block, but the rates are good too. So it's not like we're getting slammed with a high rate and they're making money off it. We actually do get a good rate. So you got to give them credit there. But as soon as we started getting into these massive gargantuan palaces of booths that are staffed by 40 and 50, in case of Drew, well over 100 that one year, I think. There's no way for the cost to make sense for anybody.
Right.
And they should have been discouraging that from the onset because it wasn't in their best interest to allow for the exhibits to outgrow what the buyer base was coming into the show.
Mhm. Yeah. Do you think we'd see more new releases happening at TPE in next year or future shows?
As a guy that's releasing a billion things, yeah, it's kind of weird. Last year, when everyone released a billion things, I didn't release much of anything, and then this year, I'm releasing quite a bit. So, I don't think there'll be a lot of new stuff really, because look, so much new stuff hit the marketplace.
Yeah.
Just the last 4 months, it's crazy. I mean, it's hard to see these companies like gear up for another hit like that. Whereas, I kind of took a year off
Mhm.
from a major kind of thing. So
Timing is hard, man. The time, just because it's January, February, you have to really have that kind of roll in your plan to release that. What?
oh yeah,
June?
you're already done. It's done. You're just doing the execution at this point.
Yeah, so that's tough. That's super tough. So I can't really see, I could see people maybe saying that they're releasing something new, but it not necessarily being there at that show at that time.
Makes
Was the
sense.
Wasabi Lancero new? Was that never released at TPE?
What?
So they did do that.
Yep.
And they did ship immediately. I already got that. So
Yeah, there was a question for people who are exhibiting because, we've played that game for years of like, you're exhibiting, but when is it actually shipping? Like you're exhibiting, but is it actually shipping in May or is it actually shipping in and so, there's some people who are shipping right after the show and there's some people who are up front and they're like, well, it's not shipping until April.
and that at least that means usually June.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else about TPE that we didn't hit that we want to talk about before we kind of move on to how it relates to PCA?
We're beating that horse.
Yeah, we're going to beat that horse. All right. Anything that you think the PCA should take note of from the TPE show that they should implement to improve their show?
How much time you got?
Well, you can go first then if you got a bunch of stuff.
No.
I will say that I appreciated the media access prior to. I think that you're going to get a mixed bag of opinions on that, but it is nice to have that opportunity to stay out of the way of brand owners and manufacturers when they're going to get hit and when they're busy and still give them that exposure. I think that would be great to transition into PCA. I think a blue carpet would be fantastic for PCA at this point. I'd be like, yes, come please. We love the idea. No, but I think that the media thing was kind of cool, and they gave us a room or whatever. And I like to say us. That's very nice.
Yeah.
They had coffee there, which is cool, and
Coffee, what?
I think that the one big thing that PCA did, or they continued to mess up, was the overregulation of things. Like they pressed on media. They pressed on. I mean, even the e-cig guys. I mean, Rich Day is one of the biggest complainers in the world because he got chastised for having CBD when they really shouldn't have came down on the guy. And all of those little things quickly add up to like, well, fuck you, like I'm not, and you upset consumers, you upset people that help get the word out about what you're doing. So I think that PCA needs to be a little more open-minded when it comes to certain things. And, I think we should do the Cigar Con. Let's go, Steve. It'll be great. It'll be fantastic. We'll have everybody.
Oddly enough, I wasn't one of the guys opposed.
I honestly think it's a good idea.
I think it would be an amazing event.
I think I'm not opposed to it. It's just a question of how it always comes down to the details, right?
Yeah.
How it's executed. And the reality is, with the number of buyers that we currently have going to the trade show, the business can be done in 2 days at this point. It really pretty much can. Well, it can definitely be done in 3. It can be done in 2.5. You know what I mean? That last day is not, look, we write some orders on that last half day, but it's just because they were just getting back around, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're not convincing anybody on day 4 to bring your brand in, right? Those conversations have been long had. These are people that were going to give you an order anyways, and they just didn't make it around to you. And if they didn't see it then, they'd send it in on Tuesday. So I think there's time to do it. I really do. And I think anything to make it more of an event and less of a trade show is actually in our best interest as an industry. I really do. I don't think the trade show part is as important. And I think that we as manufacturers, we invest in all sorts of things. I don't, but big smokes and whatnot. Yeah, why not use that to our plus? The problem that you have is this. It means you need someone to organize and execute something like that.
Yeah.
And you also need to be able to give them enough autonomy that they can make decisions that are in the best interest. And that's always one of the struggles in the way just the PCA structure works.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I'm not faulting it. I mean, there's reasons why it is the way it is, but it does make that really, really difficult. Where when you look at the TPA side of it, those guys, it's just a business. It's just that simple.
Yep.
It's about operating a trade show and making a profit at a trade show and maximizing that profit. And so they're going to do things that, like you want to talk about something to be nice. I love the fact that it's so much easier for me to register everything under TPE than it is under PCA. And it's not that it isn't the same disjointed systems. A lot of it still is. But part of it is they're just much clearer with the communication. They're much clearer with, here's what you need to do. Here's where you need to go. Here's this link. Here's that link. Here's this deadline. And they beat it into your head. Every week, they're sending you an updated email telling you this deadline's coming. This deadline's coming. And it doesn't sound like a big deal, but man, we're just damn busy, right? So a little bit of nagging like that actually is very beneficial. I like it. You know what I mean? And I wish that was something that the PCA was a little bit better. But this is the same problem. We always have this conversation. It always comes down to communication, right? Mm-hmm. It's always been a communicate. So much of it's been a communication error.
Yeah.
Right. Even the consumer con, just the way that was debuted was a communication fiasco. Right. They really just don't have anybody that has any understanding of it. And the problem is the people who do have understanding of it are people who are just too fucking miserably busy with their own stuff that they don't have the time to dedicate their free time. Right. And I'm not saying that the people that are there aren't smart people and not that they all have their certain talents and gifts. But what I am saying is there are specific people that do specific things really well. And there's a reason why they get paid to do those things. And you just need to understand that and swallow the bullet. And in the end, understand that good people will ultimately make you money, even though it seems like you're paying too much. You're really not. Because the reason they get paid that much is because they do well by their clients. I always tell people, never hire a cheap attorney. It never turns out well. You want that guy that's $700 an hour. I know it sucks. I know it's painful, but in the end, you will save money. You will.
I like the QR code too thing. If you printed out your QR code before you walked up to the attendance thing, they just scan it. Boom, here's your badge. All right, go get them. Right.
Yeah. I like that too.
Very efficient. There was no wait. Zero. Like making those things, filling in those gaps. I mean, that's how business operates, right? And you have to treat PCA like it's a business because it is a business, and you got to make the corrections just like anybody else. You review after the year's over and say, okay, what did we screw up and how do we fix it? Right. So
I still think one of the things that PCA could do that would just be huge. They try to do it, but they just don't understand what they need to do. They just need to set up a 24/7 lounge space. With a pay bar in it. Pay the money for the rental furniture from court, sofas and club chairs, set up whether they get it in a ballroom, it doesn't matter. But they need to not make it this 2 hours between here and there. You know what I mean? They need to make it accessible and available for everybody, because one of the things that's so good about the PCA is that interaction that you end up getting at the bar, right? Those conversations. But it's a terrible place to do it. There's not enough room for anyone to sit. There's not enough space. You constantly have security on your ass because you're in the aisle and you got so many cigars. If the PCA would just spend a little money and set up a space like that was open every night till 2 a.m, cash bar, okay? Anybody that wants to drink, and then guess what? Those cash bars are going to do really, really well, okay? They're going to do monster business and they're going to love the tips. So... And if they just literally had that every night, so I knew there was a place at the end of the night after I come back from dinner, gonna go have that last cigar. I'd love to be able to go someplace at 11 o'clock at night and not fight a bar scene.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's going to be more important when it comes to New Orleans.
Much more important.
Oh yeah, that's a
I
deal
don't
breaker.
even think they realize the success of that. They would literally have just as many people as they have for their opening thing, and maybe more. And it would cost them nothing but the space.
Yep.
Provide no food, provide only cash bar. Just give people a place to sit in ashtrays, people to empty ashtrays. That's what you need. And it doesn't even have to be fancy, man. Yeah, just, a little bit of color lighting, keep it a little dim.
Yep. It's true.
No loud music.
No loud music, background only.
No pools.
Yeah.
No pools.
All right. Would you say the current status of the TPE show is a positive, a negative, or a neutral for PCA?
I would say it's probably positive for them right now. I mean, look, I'm just based on what you guys are saying about how you felt about the traffic and the sales around the floor. I mean, for me, it's a neutral for Dunbarton.
Right.
But given what you guys are saying, it does not sound like anything but a positive for PCA.
Yeah. I agree that it is a positive. I think that TPE has definitely found their lane when the blue carpet, and it doesn't seem like it's the stronger of the two when it comes to cigars. I feel like they don't, even though they do cater to us to some degree, I don't think that they would care any less if we were there or not.
Right.
There's just way too much money on the other side.
Yeah. All right, that's all I have. Any topics that we did not cover that you guys wanted to hit in regards to TPA or how it maybe relates to PCA? Or otherwise, we're going to wrap this up in 2 hours.
Is that good?
That's good, I guess. I mean, I think
a miracle. Are we kidding?
I think that's good.
I think it's important to always just have like the good amount of content and not really bleed the thing out.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. I will provide a piece of advice for anybody that's exhibiting at TPE or PCA. If you want to be the hub of the entire show, if you would set up a coffee station that people could just come up and get coffee. Drew Estate dropped that this year at TPE, so they've opened the door to someone else to become the king of coffee. So I'm sure you will drive a ton of traffic to your booth if you just had people come up and get coffee. That's gonna be.
They did it in like the douchiest way possible too. Like you could see that they had coffee machines. I'm like, there's two right there. No coffee. Like, no, it's not working. I'm like, it's just unplugged.
Yeah, that was just for the staff kind of a thing this year. So it was like.
Because the trade show charges you $6 for every coffee served. I'm
maybe.
sure that's the reason why Drew Estate says, wait a minute, 100,000 in coffee.
Yeah. Yeah. And then kind of going back on one thing you talked about, Mike, about the early trade show access. That is nice. I do enjoy that. I think PCA only does that the first day, right? But TPE does it every day. But I will say the one thing at TPE, when we get there right on time and like 5% of the booths have people actually in them, like people staffing the booths, it's not a big, we're not really getting in early. We're just going to hang out with other people,
But
Yeah.
in the trade show. So
but again, the
Part of it
5
is you don't have
o'clock
to show up as early because you have basically 2 folding tables, some drape on.
yeah,
Right?
exactly.
You got the 20 by 40. You got to be there an hour and a half before the trade show opens to
Yep.
prepare for the trade
Yep.
show.
Yep.
but that 5 o'clock close time versus 6 o'clock close time, we talked about that from the PCA, and what a huge difference it made in our evening planning, where with the TPE we could get out of the trade show, have an early dinner, still have time for an event in the evening. It just isn't possible to PCA anymore, because by the time we get back to the hotel, by the time we drop our stuff off, have a dinner, there's no such thing as a quick dinner in the cigar industry. So by the time you're done your dinner, I'm ready for bed. Like, it's already, 11:30 at night. I don't have room in that evening to have a second event. When the PCA stopped at 5 o'clock, we could fit 2.5 events into the evening. And I realized they changed that time to perhaps help exhibitors who are a little banged up for the night before, but it has made a big impact in the ability to do events, which are a big part of the PCA trade show after the trade show ends. And that's been very impactful for us.
I will say though, from an exhibitor's point of view, the traffic pattern is definitely better with the 10 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Mm.
You get more people when you open, and more people stay later. So actually, from an exhibitor's point of view, it works out well. But I agree with you with what you're saying, because we have the same dilemma, because we typically don't get out of the booth until an hour later.
Yeah.
And there is no time to do anything but eat and to go to bed anymore. There just isn't. And if I'm down at the bar smoking and telling bullshit stories, I'm really making a big mistake. I should be in bed.
All right. Well, Steve, Mike, John, thank you for your time this evening and sharing your thoughts on the trade show and kind of recapping what we all experienced there.
I'm gonna get the fist fight skinny right after this, right?
That's
You guys are
right.
gonna
That's right. Don't
bang out on me
don't
now.
drop
Okay.
off. Don't drop off. This is how we tease people, like, be like, I want to be in this conversation. Like, how do I get on? So this conversation will not be recorded on the Patreon, but there will be a similar conversation, I'm sure, on the Patreon. So you can check that out next week, I guess, right?
Oh, and this is gonna be not on the Patreon. This will be on the.
Okay. All right. Then you don't even have to pay. Look
for
at that.
free.
Look at that. These are like the free
Wow.
fight, the pre-fights that you get before you have to buy the pay-per-view.
Yeah,
That's crazy. That's crazy.
No.
All right. Thank you to everybody that tuned in for the TPE recap. We're going to do a similar recap after PCA. Maybe these two gentlemen will want to join us for that one as well. Always great insights from these guys. That's why we love having them on these shows. So thank you again to everybody, and we'll catch you on the next one.